Hello everyone, it's DuckFeren07, new edition is out and we are playing one of the best cards from new edition, Soul of the Lost. This card has been very good, not just here but in multiple shells I tried, like in Rakdos, in Mono Black, in Dimir. All of these graveyard based aggro decks have been working really well with this guy, and it's just a 2 mana huge threat that opponent needs to sideboard against if they don't do it, if they don't have it in a starting hand, and the Souls of the Lost will be very hard for them to deal with. We also have Wonder in the graveyard which we can mill and give this guy a flying, and since it will be so huge, usually it takes just 1 or 2 attacks with it for the lethal damage, and that's it. Okay, what else is here? This is basically my old list without much changes, just Soul of the Lost instead of Urborg Lhurgoyf I played previously, but I think the modes on this guy, like discard and sacrifice, are more relevant than milling because we already have a lot of mill enablers. Okay, so on the sideboard, Pylon. The card I really liked when I played this deck before, and I think it's basically the staple on the sideboard for this deck. The best removal, it's so amazing. You surveil too and usually kill a creature for 1 or 2 mana or even sometimes 0. Force of Negation, not mandatory in the sideboard. Some other things can be used like Subtlety, or maybe just something else, more removal or more artifact enchantment hate, but force have been decent if you want to have some answer to combo decks, stuff like that. And yeah, okay, so force can be really good, but yeah, the use for the force is kind of limited. Okay, other than that we got Leyline. Leyline is great, best graveyard hate piece for this deck, I think. You really just don't want to waste mana on it. Either you have it or not. If you don't have it, you just try to be fast and overwhelm your opponent, and that's it. A Pylon, as I said, great removal, and 4 of these graveyard hate removal pieces are minimum for this deck. I think it's enough at the moment, so that is it. Okay, so in the league I played, I didn't have, the only change was I had two Silver Smooth Ghouls in instead of the Grey Crawler. Didn't really like it. I think there are plenty of better options. Even the new card Veil of the Forgotten or something like that, it can be good in the main or in the sideboard as postboard solution for some graveyard hate pieces, also for creatures, and just digging 3 cards from your graveyard, putting them into the graveyard. It's a useful card, so something to think about. Also a lot of other options like Urborg Lhurgoyf, or that new guy from 2 editions ago, similar to Urborg Lhurgoyf, that has adventure. You know what I mean. Okay, so other than that, yeah, as I said, there's plenty of other options, like you can play Pylon in the main instead of this. You can play a Force of Negation even in the main, Subtlety in the main, stuff like that. At one point I even played a Grief in the main. Okay, so other than that, I think this other pieces are pretty stock and pretty good. There's no point in changing anything. I really liked the Amoeba Bloodgust split. Both of these cards have been very relevant. I think I really love the 3-3 split between them, and that's it. So let's go check out the gameplay. Okay, first match was against Respect the Cat on Beans, and it was pretty exciting match, pretty fun to watch and play, I think. So okay, let's go. I played second, and yeah, a lot of stuff here. So I was sure I'm going to play like Soul of the Lost on turn 2. That's why I went for a turn 1 Crab. Make them have the removal for it. If they don't, like they'll be in a pretty big in a very big problem. But this way, opponent had the removal both for Crab and for my souls, but I bring back Bloodgust, hardcast Amalgam from my hand, and really just opponent has to deal with it, and it's not that easy for them. Okay, so I milled 4 with Secretkeeper, went for Gaze, end of turn, get back Amoeba triggering the Amalgam. Always be careful that you do this stuff in your opponent's second main phase, so if you hit Amalgam like this, it will come back immediately and you'll be able to attack with it. Okay, so playing again Soul of the Lost, discarding the Vengevine, very relevant, and then playing the Secretkeeper to trigger the Vengevine. And I have lethal damage here, opponent has to do something. They have Solitude, but that is not enough, like there are so many attackers here and Soul of the Lost is really huge. Opponent cascades into Beanstalk and concedes, that's it. Okay, let's check out the game 2. Okay, so remember I had Silver Smooth Ghouls in instead of Greycrawler, but they are like take a pretty similar slot in the deck and can be considered. Okay, so in this matchup I started out Creeping Chills. Creeping Chills are most helpful like when you're playing against some aggro matchup that's also trying to pressure you, and it's decent here but not that relevant. I wanted my Force of Negations in this pot so I can try to counter the really relevant spells like the Ring can be very relevant, also the Beanstalk of course, and the Teferi sometimes too, so trying to fight that, but it's not that, I wouldn't say it's mandatory to have Force of Negation in this matchup. I was in a problem here, I was not able to find my second land, and I milled over 2 Vengevines, so this was pretty good, but yeah, unfortunately just not being able to hit that second land means I can't get my Vengevines back, and yeah, that is going to make me too slow in this game to win this one. Opponent was able to go for the binding on the Amalgam, take 2, and yeah, there's just not a lot going on my side of the field. I go for another Supplier. If I can get like land, maybe I can still be fine if they don't have Endurance. So I keep playing still. Yeah, and finally I find the land. I go for Supplier, go for Hero. I might try to trigger the Vengevine, but opponent has the Endurance, and yeah, so I still had 2 Souls of the Lost, so the game was still on, but they played the Auriok Champion. Yeah, so Auriok Champion can easily block my Soul of the Lost, and I was still in the game despite having that terrible screw in the first few turns. Okay, so I go for the Hedron Crab here, mill 3, get back Vengevine, sack the Stitcher Supplier, mill 3 more, and my soul is 14-15 now. Unfortunately I was not able to get the Wanderer in the graveyard, but if I did I would be like very close to kill, even though my opponent has Endurance for blocker. And but yeah, I was milling a lot of cards, but still not able to get it. And considering how bad my situation was in the beginning, I was doing pretty good. Okay, so I had multiple options here. Decided to go for the Gaze and saving souls in my hand, trying to discard Vengevine next turn, play 1 mana creature and trigger the Vengevine again. But there was too much happening at my opponent's side of the field at the moment, like triple beans on the field, Omnat gaining life, Auriok providing a good blocker for my souls, and that's it. Okay, I was not able to get out of that one, and let's go check out the game 3. Okay, so game 3 starting first. Went for the Gaze and milled over 2 Vengevines, which was pretty good. So I went for Stitcher Supplier, milled 3 more, tried to hit another Vengevine, and I played the Secretkeeper immediately and just triggered the Vengevine as soon as I can and start attacking. Yeah, this is pretty good start. 2 Vengevines attacking with haste on turn 2. For a lot of decks this is unbeatable. But yeah, opponent still had a chance. Yeah, so there was no chance opponent was going to fetch before combat, so Bloodgust won't have haste anyway. I milled 6 there, returned Narcomoeba, and went to attack for 9. Opponent has 1 binding, they still take a lot of damage. And I think I had Gaze in my graveyard, so I was kind of preparing for that, keeping Bloodgust with haste a secret, and end of turn just went with everything, finding a Narcomoeba as an attacker, milling 6 more, also milling a Wonder and playing Bloodgust with haste for exactly 5 damage lethal. And that's it. Opponent doesn't have any more removals at this point, and that is the match. Okay, so let's check out the match 2. Pretty good hand, I would say. I have a Gaze for turn 1, then Stitcher Supplier to follow it, hoping to find something on top with Gaze or to mill something good. So opponent also playing Beans, but this time it was non-cascade version. So I go for mill 4 and just fetch the black land. So I milled over a Vengevine. So now I was able to go for Stitcher Supplier, cast the Secretkeeper, trigger the Vengevine, also trigger the Amalgam with Amoeba. And yeah, so this is okay start, nothing brutal, but yeah, still a lot of power on the field. Opponent has to deal with this. And Fury also doesn't do much here. They really need like Leyline Bindings and Solitudes to deal with these threats, or they just come back from the graveyard next turn. Yeah, as I said, opponent has the Fury here, kills Amalgam, but Amalgam usually don't stay long in the graveyard. Okay, so multiple options here. I went for attacks with Stitcher Supplier on Teferi, didn't want them to just bounce my souls. So I went for attack with Stitcher Supplier, cast my souls and discard Bloodgust. I find a land. This means I can get my Bloodgust back with haste. A mill 4 with Secretkeeper, and yeah, don't have nothing great at the moment. Just Gaze in the graveyard and few creatures in hand. I mill over Creeping Chill. Mill over Creeping Chill, put my opponent to 6, but they had Elashnorn on the field. Definitely big problem. But Elash actually doesn't affect most of my stuff, like stuff from the graveyard still trigger despite Elash being on the field. So yeah, they had Solitude there, I had another Souls, but that is not enough in a situation like this. And they exile all my stuff, start attacking Solitude, and that means game over, of course. Yeah, so that was game 1. Let's check out game 2 and 3. Okay, so this is a non-cascade version of Ring Cascade, Ring Beans deck. And yeah, this time on the when I was playing on the play, I decided not to board in the Force of Negations, but when I was on the draw, I boarded in Force of Negations. So this means when playing first, I'm trying to be a little bit more aggressive, and when playing second, then playing a little bit more defensive, because I know I can't get that much pressure on the field before they succeed to do some powerful stuff like putting multiple beans on the field or ring. And Force of Negation is just really good against ring and not that great against halflings. So halflings was really a big reason why I didn't bring in my Force of Negations, and I don't really have removals, and Delighted Halfling making their ring uncounterable or Teferi is pretty big problem. And yeah, so that means Force of Negation was not a good choice for this matchup. And yeah, so I kept them on side, and I think this was a good decision. I attacked my opponent for 4 there and cast my Wonder, so they were on 3 life. But cast the Fury there, cast the Prismatic Ending, and that was pretty good for them, yeah. Okay, so again, I have Secret Keeper, Haywire Might to trigger both of my Vengevines for the graveyard. Opponent had ability to jump them with the Halflings, but yeah, long term they were not able to survive this, and that was the game. Okay, let's check out the game 3. Again, Creeping Chills out. Don't really need them that much for this matchup, and ghouls or grave crawlers, whatever. I mean, grave crawlers may be a little bit better than ghouls, but still, okay. This is a card you can definitely consider boarding out. And yeah, this was pretty intense game. My opponent had just 4 minutes on the clock at the start of the game 3. I had decent hand like Secret Keeper, Supplier, Pylon. Yeah, I didn't use Pylon against in the first matchup against Cascade Beans because they don't play that much relevant creatures, but here like Halfling and Omnat and Elesh can all be very relevant. And yeah, that's why I decided to bring in 2 Pylons. Just 2 of them, I think. Yeah, just 2 of them. And I decided to use it in that situation on Halfling. My opponent decides to jump, so I mill 3 more cards. Then use the Otherworldly Gaze and use it again to look through 6 cards and keep the Stitcher Supplier on top. Opponent has the Beanstalk, draws a card, passes the turn with 5 cards in hand. I now have a Stitcher Supplier plus Amalgam. This means I can play Amalgam to trigger Vengevine, but I decide to go for Gaze and then cast the Secret Keeper to trigger it. I now had Flying. I had Wander in my graveyard, which is pretty good. Makes really hard for opponent to block anything, and yeah, so just makes getting lethal much easier. But opponent had Leyline Binding there, Beanstalk on the field, and 6 cards in hand. So yeah, pretty good situation for them. Also Omnat is really good here, gaining them a little bit life. And they were able to go for the Fury, draw another card, and yeah, clear my board. Triggering Vengevines even without Grey Crawler was not really a big deal here, and I didn't have much problems triggering it. This build especially has a lot of creatures in it, and I always had something to do. Okay, so now I went for a Gaze. From the graveyard, milled over Amalgam and another And another gaze, so bringing back the Bloodgust. Let me bring back Amalgam into play. Opponent tries to finish me off here, but they run out of time and I win this one on time. Opponent actually had the lethal this turn. If they were able to attack, they would win, but yeah, I got this win on time. Opponent was playing a bit slow and it costed them the match. Let's check out the match 3. Pretty good hand, double Secretkeeper and the Supplier. I have only one land, but a lot to do here with this one land and just hoping to hit that second one. Okay, so also in this build you may notice I'm playing only 2 green sources. Maybe playing third green source is something to consider. I had one situation overall and I played only 2 leagues with this deck. Just 2 leagues, and but deck did very good in both of them, doing 4-1 2 times. I was really happy with it, and so I was playing against a Living End this one, and the Living End proved to be very good matchup for the deck. So I was able to really mill fast, put a lot of relevant stuff into the graveyard early, and I was able in the same time like pressure my opponent with the creatures on the field and also keep my graveyard pretty big, so in case if they go for Living End, I still be in a better situation after they resolve it. Okay, opponent now has 3 mana but just 2 Oliphants in the graveyard. And I have Soul of the Lost there. Yeah, so I top deck a Hedron Crab, but don't have a land. And basically nothing else good to play here, just a Gaze in the graveyard. So definitely going for the Gaze this turn. And doing it on opponent's upkeep, so they can't use Force of Negation. I resolve that, put another Vengevine in the graveyard and a Stitcher Supplier. Opponent doesn't do much, just cycle, put a land tapped and that's it. So yeah, I go for the Hedron Crab there. I found a fetch on the top with Gaze last turn, so went to mill 6 and this really puts my opponent in a bad situation. Also milling over Creeping Chill to put pressure on their life total, playing Amoeba and getting back a Vengevine immediately to hit for 6 damage, putting my opponent, sorry, even Bloodgust had haste, so it's not 6, it's 8, so my opponent goes down to 2 life, which is really low. Yeah, so passing the turn here. And my graveyard is really full, and even if my opponent do the Living End thing, they only have like 3 creatures in deck, which is incredibly low for turn 6 and their deck. So their deck like pretty failed them in this match, but even so, like I had in the other matches I had really good matchup against Living End, and it was really hard game for them in all of the matches. Okay, so let's check out game 2. The ability to put pressure on the field, putting creatures on the field which can attack and also mill you just feels incredibly strong in this matchup. I didn't even board in the Force of Negation, they felt like really unnecessary for winning this game. So what I wanted to do here to win is just play the Hedron Crab, and basically if they don't deal with it immediately they just lose to Hedron Crab unless they have like endurance. But opponent was playing first and had Mystical Dispute there, so yeah, that was pretty good. I thought I'm going to lose after they disputed my crab. I have a Leyline of the Voids on the side, didn't have one in my starting hand. I went for Supplier here, tried to put something in the graveyard and just play the land past the turn. So nothing really good happening here, but I have two Hedron Crabs and my opponent went for Architect of Will and decided to go Shadow's Agent and Living End in their turn. Okay, so now I have two Hedron Crabs and fetch on the field, so I can mill end of their turn and I can also mill in my turn. So that is a lot of cards. This is 6 and this is 12, so that is 18 cards in the graveyard. 18 cards in the graveyard in this deck can really do wonders. Again, doing this stuff always in the second main phase, so if you get amalgams, they get back immediately and you can use them to attack or whatever. Okay, so in upkeep, going for a gaze, flashback from the graveyard, opponent uses the Force of Negation. Still a fetch here can get me a lot of cards in the graveyard. Again, I sided out Creeping Chills for cards I really wanted in main. And you can see like I boarded some of the graveyard, enchantment hate, because opponent's deck is also playing Leyline of the Void like myself, and I really have to have solution for it. So I boarded in 3 of these graveyard hate pieces. That is probably the most important board, so you just have to have some solutions for the leyline and not just lose to it. And of course, just boarding your leyline against them obviously is the most important thing. Okay, so I milled a lot of cards, but I was not able to find the really relevant ones. And I had to block here a lot of creatures to be able to survive, but still, a lot of cards at this point in the graveyard, but weirdly enough, 70 cards left and just one Vengevine is in the graveyard at this point. But I also have Wandering, which was important for blocking the Curator of Mysteries. Okay, so there goes the Stitcher Supplier. Milling 3 more and then Bloodgust, bringing back the Vengevine as another blocker, very good blocker. Yeah, opponent goes like Dispute on Bloodgust, whatever. They should have used it on Supplier. And yeah, okay, so I had 2 blockers here. So I was counting on them not having, they needed like Otawara plus land to clear my blocker, or Brazen Borrower, which is not a high chance they have Brazen Borrower here. So they needed like land plus Otawara, which was not very likely for them to have. So I decided to attack with all of these, stay back with these 2 guys, so I can block 2 creatures I can block and survive on 1 if they attack, and then do the lethal on the swing back. And that plan worked and they conceded, and that was the match. Okay, so let's check out last win in this league. It was also against Living End. Okay, so I find the Living End matchup pretty easy, and the deck is kind of popular, getting popular again right now. Yeah, opponent had a much better hand this time, like a double Street Rate, a double Riverwinder. These are all pretty good early threats. And yeah, I just passed the turn, going for the Gaze in their upkeep. Milling over Amalgam and Chill, putting the Stitcher Supplier on top. And yeah, opponent basically just concedes the game. They didn't even have the second land, I guess, and that was it. They were already on 10 life, and I had a lot of action still, so they conceded after probably not finding the land or whatever. Okay, again, let's see the sideboarding plan, and yeah, a force of negations. It didn't. Yeah, I definitely don't want them on the draw. I consider them on the play, but I definitely don't want them on the draw. I also remove the creeping chills again. So basically, in all of these matchups, like creeping chills didn't feel like very necessary. Okay, so going for gaze there, leaving Supplier on top. Now putting Secretkeeper on top. And opponent goes for Charles, resolving the living end. And yeah, I mean, they put like 5 creatures on the field, but I also put a lot of stuff on the field. And I now have 2 Souls of the Lost, which each one is 11, 12. And yeah, that is pretty bad situation for opponent. Even after resolving the living end, they still like find themselves in a pretty bad situation. I play fetch to bring back Bloodgust. This way I can cast another Souls if needed. I attack with both of these. They have to block because they are both lethal attackers. And my only thing my opponent can have here is another living end. So I didn't want to play my third Souls, and just played my gaze to put more stuff in the graveyard. Okay, opponent continues attacking, and now I go for everything, trying to go for lethal, expecting, of course, opponents to have a cascade spell, but they didn't have it, just a bounce for the souls, but they die anyway, and that is another win against Living End. Okay, so let's check out now the defeat. Okay, Gaze plus Hedron Crab. I consider this type of hand basically always a keep. A Gaze, a Fetch and Crab is always like pretty good. Okay, opponent was playing a Dimir Control, and control decks like should be pretty good matchup for this deck. I have like all these threats that it's very hard for them to deal with, but they were playing first. And that was mostly the reason why they're probably able to get away with a win. Okay, so I tried to play more carefully with my Hedron Crab, not to play here into the counterspell. So I just play a land and hold for Gaze, putting 2 amalgams in the graveyard and Stitcher Supplier on top, which seemed pretty good. Okay, so yeah, maybe the better play here was let them maybe counter the Stitcher Supplier, then play the Crab and try to mill 6. Yeah, maybe this was difference between a win or defeat in this matchup, but still I was able to play a land, get the Bloodgust back and get the Amalgams back. But Sheldred is a pretty good creature, and which can gain a lot of life and pressure my life total, also a pretty good blocker. So I'm going with everything. I don't care if they block, I put them on 9 and shock there to go for the Secretkeeper, finding Creeping Chill and Narcomoeba. So now I put Narcomoeba into play. I have a Supplier as a blocker, exile Creeping Chill, putting them on 6 life, and triggering Amalgam. So all 4 Amalgams in the play. My board is really strong. So blocking with Stitcher Supplier there to mill 3 more, not finding anything relevant, and now opponent finds the ring, plus Sheldred, and yeah, that is pretty strong. I play the Creeping Chill here just to gain 3 life. Yeah, this actually Creeping Chill doesn't target, it says to each opponent, but opponent still doesn't lose life. But I gained 3, which seemed relevant because the Sheldred is on the field. But yeah, Murktide and Sheldred and the Ring on the field let them gain really lot of life, like a huge amount of life over the turns. I play the Soul of the Lost as a 13-14 creature here. And again going with everything. I should have stayed probably back with something, yeah, because my opponent has a lethal swing back. I play the Secret Keeper as another blocker, but yeah, they counter it. So now now I had only Soul of the Lost as my only creature in the block, and opponent was able to find the Otawara and go for the lethal damage here with the bolt immediately on their turn. So that was it. Yeah, I could have stayed back with another creature, but I think I wasn't winning that game anyway. They gained just too much life with Sheldred, and that was the reason why I really wanted the Pylon. I also wanted the Havarmite and the Tear Asunder for their graveyard hate pieces. They also play Leyline, and I really need the Havarmite, and also needed that Pylon because of the Sheldred, but that kind of can make your hand a little bit slower. And yeah, unfortunately I milled over the breeding pool, yeah, and that was basically the only situation in these 2 leagues where I really regretted not having that third green source, and I would really consider just adding the third one. I unfortunately in this situation I milled over breeding pool, and that was basically the big reason. That was really a great reason why I didn't probably win this match. I was attacking here for 4, 2 suppliers, Bloodgust on the field. Bloodgust stay on the field, like they really have problems dealing with this. And yeah, I found that land I was looking for, but unfortunately no green mana for me. So yeah, I was trying to find the Souls of the Lost, but 2 of those were in my graveyard already, and yeah, this time I didn't have a way to put the Vengevine into the graveyard, and that I think mostly costed me this game, because if I was able to play this Vengevine at any point, like last turn or this turn, I think that would be like a huge difference. Even if I was just able to find the Soul of the Lost, that would be like a really big deal. Again, my opponent plays the Sheldred, plays Preordain, start gaining some life, and I don't have enough pressure, and I kind of used Pylon last turn unnecessarily. I kind of really wanted to just do the surveil more than I really wanted to kill a creature. I wanted to do the surveils just to find the stuff I need. And again, yeah, these 2 plays that were slightly suboptimal costed me this game. And yeah, fact I didn't have the breeding pool in the deck to cast my Vengevine. I didn't draw my souls to be able to discard the Vengevine, and then also just using the Pylon on the Bowmasters when it really wasn't that necessary. And yeah, all of that small like decisions ended up, yeah, not good for me. Okay, opponent plays the Bowmaster. I have a lot of these small guys in, but again with the ring on the field, and it wasn't enough. Also, like Blood Moon kind of surprised me. I was F6 here and I didn't even fetch in response. I didn't really expect them to have the Blood Moon. And okay, so draw another Vengevine, another uncastable Vengevine, and that was it. Yeah, I conceded at that point. Yeah, there's just no point in playing. Yeah, so pretty close game. Kind of made some bad decisions. In this one, also kind of unfortunate for milling that breeding pool in this second game. And yeah, the pylon decision to go for the bowmaster there wasn't good. I really needed to save that one for the sheltered exclusively and nothing else. That is like the only creature I have a problem with, and I think it should be like pretty easy matchup. Not maybe not easy, but favorable matchup, and I still lost like both games, and yeah. Okay, but that is it. Deck feels very good. Like we only saw few matchups there. Like obviously the Living End matchup is pretty good. I think the Beans matchups are pretty interesting. Like deck has really can make a wide, huge board in the early game, and while the Bean decks really do play a lot of removal, like Binding and Solitude are not really that great against this deck because you make like 5, 6, 7 threats on the field, and they have to have right removal at the right time. So if you have souls, they have to have a Solitude. If you have a lot of the small guys, they have to have Fury. If they don't have the right one, they will just very quickly lose the game. And that's it. So the Tira Sanders and Havermight are very efficient at dealing with the Graveyard Hate, but also dealing with the Beanstalk, dealing with the One Ring. Back to Nature is another option you could play, both for dealing with the Rest in Pieces and whatever like ley lines, but also stuff like the Beanstalk, and the enchantments are really high right now in the modern. Force of Negation, as I said, not really that mandatory, but can be useful sometimes. Not really in the matchups you saw in this league, but there are like a lot of combo decks out there. Like Force of Negation used to be very good against Creativity. It was like the best card in the sideboard for it. Very relevant. Yeah, and it's really good against that type of decks like Scapeshift, Creativity, and these decks are not that popular right now, but still Force has its uses. Also can be used against Cascade Beans and stuff like that. Okay, so that is it. I'm really happy with the deck and really happy with the souls. I was like constantly hoping to find this card from the top, constantly playing Otherworldly Gaze, searching for the souls, ways to discard stuff from my hand was really good. Often like also sacking the Supplier was great. I felt like this deck for a long time always missed a way to efficiently sack the Supplier, and now finally it is there and it is really good. It is one big creature that can also like discard stuff from your hand. I really like it, and I think it takes the deck to another level, and I think it could be like really competitive right now. The problem is the deck used to have like pretty bad scam matchup, but at the moment like most of the scam lists are low on the ley lines and mostly just do the Doughty, which is like a lot easier to deal with. If they start with turn 0 ley line into turn 2 Doughty, that is like nightmare to deal with, very hard, almost impossible. And yeah, but that is not really often, and the deck definitely can fight other similar hate and can play through it, and yeah, there are definitely more options for the main and the side, and that is it. So hope you like the deck, hope you like the gameplay. That is it for this time. A friendly reminder to click like, click subscribe, like the video. I want to hear in the comments your experience with this deck. I expect a lot of people to try this list again, Souls of the Lost. Really excited for this card, not just for this deck, but yeah, like this deck is maybe the one that is using it the best, and that's it. So again, thanks for watching and goodbye.